gentle readers, and welcome once again to the Comic Book Vault. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
Vince, today we're going to be taking a look at Daredevil, Guardian Devil, Volume 1 by Kevin Smith. And actually, this volume is called Guardian Devil, and then his subsequent volumes are, of course, called other things, because that's the name of the story arc.
True.
And this was originally put out in 1998, and this is the very beginning of the Kevin Smith run. And I had never read this until now, and thought it was absolutely fantastic.
It's pretty
I felt bad about having never read this before, because it's so fundamental to everything that came after it. I was really surprised by it.
I read this when I first got into comic books, so if I had to credit two things, first it's Mark Waid's first story arc on Fantastic Four, and then it's this.
Okay.
And these are the things that really pulled me into the to the fray.
I can that'll become funny later. I can see why, and I'm considering how late you got into comics. I'm impressed that you found the things that you found. Because you found some of the best stuff that was coming out just before that. So one of the things I was surprised. Well, actually, let me preface everything before we get into plot and stuff, just by saying that two things really surprised me by this. First of all, I didn't realize how early Kevin Smith's run was, and I didn't realize how much the Daredevil movie, was influenced by this. Not story-wise so much, but there are several like phrases and ways people say things that pop into the movie. I won't go into all of them, but I really, somebody tell me if I'm wrong about this, but I really think that, I don't know if the idea of Guardian Devil was around in Daredevil before this, and considering that, Ben Affleck is the Daredevil in that movie, and considering they're best friends, I would not be surprised if that didn't come from this. And stuff like that. The other thing I was really surprised by is that the preface, the introduction, is written by Ben Affleck himself. And once again, remember, this is 1998. This was before he was even considered for the role. And he's not talking about him being Daredevil. He's talking about how amazing it is that his best friend got to write Daredevil. And Daredevil being Ben Affleck's favorite superhero, and he talked a lot about that. And I thought it was really interesting reading that, knowing that in a couple years he's going to be Daredevil. Whether you like the Ben Affleck Daredevil or not, I thought that was kind of interesting.
What was funny is when I first picked that book up, I was like, Ben Affleck, who cares what Ben Affleck has to say?
Right.
So I just kept moving to the book.
I bet a lot of people had that, and I love that they put a picture too, where it's like, just in case you don't know who this is, we're going to put a picture.
Ben Affleck. Oh, it's not his cousin, Ben Casey. You didn't think I was going to say that, did you?
Because he doesn't exist. Anyway, this is not a real long show, so let's go ahead and talk about the book.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So this is kind of a mystery story, and I don't want to give away too much. We're going to sometimes spoil things on this show, and we'll tell you when we're going to, but with this, I really want people to get to experience it if they haven't, so I'm not going to give away too much. But
the ride was so important in this thing. I mean, there's so much emotion tied up in the specific events that happen throughout the book.
But essentially, the crux of it is it's a mystery story about a potential immaculate conception where perhaps this child that is supposedly, like I said, immaculate is the second coming of Christ, and Matt Murdock is trying to figure out if that's the case or not, and there are various people and organizations trying to get their hands on this kid, apparently. And it's one of those Daredevil things where, because this always happens with Daredevil, where the world is crashing down on top of him in every possible conceivable way, And again, I won't tell you everything, but bad things happen to Karen Page, and bad things happen to Foggy Nelson, and it's just it's just bad thing after bad thing, and a lot of it is about I mean, there's a multitude of themes, but a lot of it, just as far as the character goes, is about Matt Murdock's sordid history with women and how he goes after the wrong women and can't keep girlfriends. And
the interesting thing about this is that first of all, he dresses like a devil, and he's having to deal with these religious issues. So he has this big. He identifies so closely with sin, and he uses this this idea of sin to to frighten other people. So Daredevil has his devil, and Batman has his bat, and so therefore it would make sense that you would really want to pull at all of Matt Murdock's past sins. It's like, no, this isn't just a costume that you put on. This is an integral part of you. What about you is in some way evil.
And Kevin Smith has a really good sense of what came before this. He obviously really loves the character, and he uses a lot of, especially Miller stuff, and delves into things that hadn't been delved into before. So, you know, Miller really gave us the Catholic stuff with Daredevil, and Kevin Smith is trying to take that even further. And so there's a lot more done with his mother here than we've seen before.
It just reminds me of Mean Streets in a way, a Scorsese film that came out in, I believe, the 70s, where you have a main character who is part of organized crime, and you know Daredevil so often has to deal with organized crime.
Sure.
That you have this very religious organized crime, specifically the Italian mafia, is usually seen as religious, specifically Catholic. So it's interesting to see a parallel there with, you have a hero who's having to deal with the same issues that the people he generally fights has to deal with. And I don't know, I'm just so hung up on this because I found it so interesting, and it stayed with me for since all those years ago.
I love how well Kevin Smith is able to balance all of these different things he's doing thematically that don't seem to have anything to do with each other, and then they all come together. Because, like you said, he's dealing with religion, but then he's also dealing with he's also dealing with the entertainment industry in the last part of the book and stuff like that. It's really cool how well he manages to intricately plot this so that everything fits together, and nothing is ever what it seems. Like there are pages and pages of exposition that are then later contradicted by something, and you find out, oh, that's not really what's going on. It's really like this, but it's done in really realistic and in smart ways.
There's a switch, my friend.
There's mostly, I mean, there's some mystical stuff going on, but then a lot of it you think it's mystical, and then it's something else, and it's really cool how he manages to do that. I should also mention just the way that Kevin Smith plots, because this is superhero stuff, and there is a lot of action in this, but it's also like his movies in the sense that it's so character-driven, but also so dialogue-heavy. I mean, like it took forever to read this. I think it was like a 3.5 hour read for me all the way through 8 issues, because there's so many words on every page, and that's not a complaint. But it's different. Like it's not what you're used to if you read a lot of comics, because it's also impressive by the way that so much is done with the panels, considering how many words there are.
You know, the interesting thing about when I saw that Kevin Smith wrote this, I was really surprised because, well, when I was first getting into comic books, I was like, how could the guy that made Clerks write a comic book? Mm-hmm. And I mean, if you see Clerks and you read this, you understand why this is so wordy, because he's sort of a dialogue hound, to use a word that he doesn't use, but he calls himself a dialogue prostitute essentially. Anyway.
But I would say it's he's as much that way as Moore is.
He loves his words, and why I was so surprised by this is I've heard him say things like, if I were to shoot an action movie, I would just have them walk off the screen like, oh, there's some fighting over there going on. So they go off camera, they fight, and they come back and talk about it. Mm-hmm. And what's surprising is that a guy who openly has that mentality about filming things shows that he's not stuck by that. Mm-hmm. I mean, he is sort of stuck by his wordiness, because that's, you know, what he loves.
Well,
and
he's
that's
also got the artist here to back him up.
Yeah, so he allows his imagination to take him places that his imagination may not necessarily
allow. This is, by the way, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go for it. Well, maybe he allows his imagination to take him places where his imagination will not take him in film, because it's not a venue that he wants to explore that in. But comic books, he just goes wild.
This is, by the way, Quesada's best word.
Quesada, it continues into the Bendis run as well. Quesada does a lot of really good work in Daredevil. In fact, if I had to pick my ideal Daredevil, it's the Marvel Knights run, with starting with Miller and going into Bendis, even including Mac.
Well, Vince, let's go ahead and go to our trivia question for today. Our trivia question from last week was, what futuristic series set in the Buffyverse in the early 2000s? What was the name of that? And it was by Dark Horse, and the answer was Frey. The answer was Frey, and the first person who got that right was Gondul. And so, well done. Way to get that correct. And Vince, what is today's trivia question?
Today's trivia question is, what artist co-created the character Daredevil with Stan Lee?
Okay, question. Here's your hint. Here's your hint right there. And if you think you know, make sure you leave it in the comments below. I'll be sure to mention the first person who got it right in the next episode of the Comic Book Vault. Remember that the Comic Book Vault is a vast and mysterious wonderland of comic books, which can be both donated to and purchased from. You can also sell us things if we're interested. Be sure to send us a message, a personal message on Geekvolution if there's something you have that you're wanting to sell. If there's something you just simply want to, and we won't necessarily buy it, but we may care. And if there's something you want to send us, be sure to send it to our P.O. Box. That's Geekvolution, P.O. Box 14183, Lenexa, Kansas 66285. And you can also buy comics from the Comic Vault on eBay. Go to wearegeeksnotnerds.com, click on the Comic Vault, and you can find out what we're selling there. Thanks a lot for watching on the Comic Vault. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
And we'll see you next time.